Hey everybody, today I thought I would take a few minutes to talk to you about the ISO portion of the exposure triangle. Remember that ISO is the camera sensor's sensitivity to light. And by changing the ISO, we can make the camera either more or less sensitive to light, and that will then affect the shutter speed and aperture portions of the exposure triangle. As I draw a circle, triangle. Right, as we change the ISO, that's going to have an effect on the shutter speed and the aperture that our camera needs to use in order to make a proper exposure. So I'm here out in the yard. I've got the sun coming from up behind me. As we look at our scene here, it extends out down this sidewalk here. There's our assistant Milo, the dog right there. Hello. Beautiful sunflower, well lit there in the back. And I'm gonna take my Lumix camera and I'm gonna put the mode on P for program, right there. Turn it on, of course. I'll put my focal length, my zoom lens here on 35, just to make it consistent. I'm gonna try to take this picture several times. I'll hit my white balance button and I'll look in here and I'm just gonna, for this exercise purpose, we're just gonna put it on auto white balance, all right? And now, the purpose of the exercise, I'm gonna press the ISO button. And this camera, the best ISO that it can deliver is 100, right here. That's auto ISO. I'm gonna put it on 100, which is the lowest ISO that's available, and it will be the highest quality. So I'm gonna accept that, and I'll come over here and compose this scene. And so I'm looking at 1/125th for the shutter speed, f5 at ISO 100. I'm focusing on that purple plant there, kind of in the center by the sunflower. And now I'll press the ISO button again, and I'm gonna roll it on up to like, I don't know, 800. Well, I guess I do know. I'm gonna roll it up to 800. I half press the shutter button to accept that ISO 800 setting. And now I'm gonna point at that purple plant again. And at ISO 800, it tells me 1/500th of a second and f8, right? So I need a much faster shutter speed and a smaller hole for the light in the aperture when I make the ISO more sensitive to light. Now I hit ISO again. I'm gonna come on up, let's just go to 3200. Very sensitive to light. All right, come over here, make this picture again. Now at ISO 3200, it's telling me f8 and 1/2000th for my shutter speed, 1/2000th of a second to get a proper exposure. Now let's go all the way for fun. I'm gonna press my ISO button and I'm gonna go to the maximum ISO this camera has, 51,200. 1/5000th at f22 for 51,200. So let's come on and make that picture. Now when I come over here to my spot, it's even changed a little more. At ISO 51,200, the maximum ISO, the most light sensitive there is. You could shoot this picture in the dark and it would see something. At ISO 51,200, it wants a 1/4000th of a second shutter speed at f22, the smallest aperture that's available on this camera or with this lens. So what we end up with here at the end is 4 different pictures at 4 different ISOs. ISO 100, ISO 800, ISO 3200, and ISO 51,200. Because we're in program mode, the ISO is the setting that determines the f-stop or aperture and the shutter speed. So as by changing the ISO, we can see what other changes have to be made in order to give us an equivalent, correct exposure. And we can see that each one of these is about the same as far as dark to light. One of the things that we want to be aware of when you're shooting at different ISOs is the resolution change as you go from lower ISOs, less sensitive to light, to higher ISOs, more sensitive to light. the digital noise as we proceed up the ISO scale to 51,200 will result in noisy images. The resolution of the image will suffer as we move up in the ISO scale. And we could see the noise changes here as we go from ISO 100 to ISO 51,200. That said, it's more important to come back with a picture you can use than a completely noise-free picture. So that's what I got for you today. ISO and the exposure triangle. Thanks for your attention, and I'll see y'all again soon.